and really knowledgeable. So it's our fortune to have him with us. So try to take the best use of him.
Mm.
Yes.
Okay. Over to you, Sandeep ji.
Yes, Vivek, thank you very much. And just a small correction, I was a faculty because I have not been taking the sessions nowadays due to personal commitments of my very toddler son who I need to take care of. And I would love to take care of, besides my wife, of course. But yes, I used to take sessions at BIBF for ACCA for quite a long time. So we'll try to capitalize on that knowledge as well. And Nizam, yes, so good morning to you as well. And good morning, Santosh and Ajay as well. And Vivek, thank you so very much for organizing this so wonderfully well, because I know you've been doing very silent job in the backdrop. So I need to place on record my sincere appreciation and thanks to you also for organizing this in such a smooth manner. So thanks a lot before I begin. And Vivek, is it fine for you to please let me share the presentation also? I think because it's been disabled for the time being. Can I?
Okay, just give me a minute. We'll make you the host. Ajay,
Yeah,
since you are
done,
the
done.
host.
Done.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. So, okay, so this is what it is. Okay, so is it fine? Is it appearing on the screen? Proper, Nizam and Vivek, is it okay?
It's just about coming. It's not come yet.
Okay, no problem.
It's appearing now.
It's fine, right? Okay,
Yes.
brilliant. Okay. Okay, so today we'll try to take up the subject of business and commercial knowledge. In particular, we'll be touching up on the 3 chapters, which is chapter number 2, 3, and 4 from the study material, which is business environment, business organizations, and government policies for business growth. We'll definitely try and cover as many MCQs as we can as well, time permitting. I know a couple of hours are actually short for considering these 3 chapters, and those are quite sizable. And the one on business organization is really kind of exhaustive, which gives the idea about the operations of several listed Indian companies as well as foreign companies as well. But we'll try and do maximum possible justice by not wasting any time unwarrantedly at all, but also making sure that any doubts, any questions, any clarifications that you have, we can solve them as we go along. So you don't need to wait till the end and park your questions. And since we are a small batch, I would even not mind you being on an unmute mode as well, because I'm sure there'll be no distraction. So it will be kind of interactive if at all we can make it, not just for the heck of it, but really actually. Okay. And yeah, the sources are basically the ICI study materials, which Vivek had kindly made available to me, and some other information from public domain as well. Vivek was also kind enough to get me some other information from some coaching classes, but honestly, I'm not quoting them as a source because I don't want to get into some controversy or something. But if time permitting, we'll be even taking up few MCQs from there as well. In terms of disclaimers, yes, whatever views I express in here will be purely mine, and it has got nothing to do with my employer where I work. And if at all we end up quoting any names of the individuals or entities or any countries, those are purely for representation purpose or just to clarify our point or substantiate or corroborate our views. It's got nothing other to do with it. So no other malified intention whatsoever, to be honest, if at all it seems so. Okay, so is that fine? And am I audible enough?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay, Nizam, I think Sarath has also joined in, right?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, Sharad's
Join,
going.
yes, join.
Okay, so then shall we get started straight away? Is it okay?
Yes, sir, we can start.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll start with chapter number 2 to begin with, which is all about business environment. So before we begin, can I just have a little bit of a perspective from you, Nizam and Sarath, as to what do you really mean by business environment, its components? What is it that we need to take care about when we talk about business environment? Why is it important that we should be discussing about it during our foundation course examination? Do you think so? Hello?
Analyzing business environment is very, very important
Mm-hmm.
because there will be many opportunities and threats in the business environment, so that the business can make policies and they can make strategies to overcome or to make capitalize the opportunities.
Yes. Anything else you would like to add up as well?
Then it also this business environment gives some signals about what is going to happen in the future.
Yeah. Correct. Absolutely. Yes. So so very valid points made that, for example, as we understand, understanding the business environment is extremely crucial and important for all the entities, because businesses don't generally perform in isolation, right? They operate into an ecosystem. So there are so many factors, internal as well as external, which the businesses needs to be understanding about. There will be so many components that they need to understand. They need to be dynamic. They need to be agile. They need to be flexible to adapt to different situations. There can be so many unforeseen events that might just come up. So if the businesses are static and if they don't prepare themselves well, or if they don't gear up themselves well, probably they'll not be able to be ahead of the curve. So that's the reason we need to understand the business environment. So this is basically going to be the chapter overview, which I have straight away reproduced from the study material. So we'll try to understand what is the business environment. And then we'll try to do the environmental analysis, which will talk about the two major types of environments, which is internal environment and external environment. And internal environment has got everything to do generally within the business, or something which is kind of within the control of the business. When it comes to external environment, it has got things which are outside the environment, which is then broken up into micro and macro, which we shall again discuss in detail as well. Then we'll move into pestle analysis of business environment. And last but not the least, how would the businesses, or how should the businesses strategically respond to its environment, which is dynamic and ever changing, right? So it is very evident that to survive, the businesses need to have the ability to prosper and change as well. Just a second, there's something which pops up, which blocks my screen. Just a minute, please. Vivek, hello. Vivek. Hello.
Hi, Sandip, you are facing some issue? What is that?
Just a minute. I think I was getting some. Just a minute. Okay, fine.
Your screen is appearing. You are audible also.
Okay, fair enough. It's fine, right?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely fine.
Okay, so I'll just move on. Okay. So the thing is, so in order to survive, the businesses need the ability to prosper and change. And as we all know, change is the only constant in the business. There are so many organizations which want to establish themselves, and according to an analysis, they say that approximately 50 million new firms are born globally every year, right? Now, this is a staggering number. It looks and seems unbelievable as well, but every single year, there are 50 million new businesses which are born globally, which tries to thrive. That actually gives us an average that, for example, on an average, 137,000 businesses are born every single day. But the problem is 130,000 odd actually shut down the operations every single day as well. So for example, birth rate and death rate of businesses is almost similar. So for example, businesses close down due to various reasons, right? And we can also, we've also heard so many leading organizations which are putting the shutters down. During the COVID pandemic, we've seen global airlines having difficulties. There are so many well-known organizations which are going and filing for bankruptcy, etc. as well. So if the businesses are not able to foresee the change, if they're not able to study the environment and respond to the environment appropriately, they might have to suffer from the difficulties that they are foreseeing. So that is a scale of operations that is happening globally and the ecosystem of the business environment in which they are operating. So based on that, we can understand, of course, when the businesses start, they have the long-term aspirations, they have massive dreams, they all want to establish themselves big time, they want to be unicorns, they want to go public, so on and so forth. But It really depends on how flexible they are, how adaptable they are to the changes that occur in their environment. And based on that, their lifespan is decided. So for example, if we go to India, there are organizations like Tata, which have been doing businesses for more than a century. But on the other end, there'll be certain startups, they vanish within no time, right? So on an average, if we talk about the lifespan of businesses in India, that's around close to, let's say, 50 years. That considers listed companies, unlisted companies, small and medium enterprises, all the different gamuts of the businesses. But yeah, on an average, let's say the life is 50 years. That, as we know, is a fairly long business cycle, which will have its own peaks and troughs and recession and good time and bad time and maturity of the businesses and so many things, right? Sorry, just one more second before I continue this. Hello, am I audible again? Sorry, I cannot see myself popping up here. Hello, Nizam, can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, sir. I can hear you.
It's fine, right? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So when it comes to changes, let's say changes come and create opportunities for the businesses. At the same time, as you rightly mentioned, they even create threats also. And they also present like so many different new ways of doing businesses as well, right? So for example, if we talk about the composition of highest market capitalized companies, let's say 15 to 20 years ago, and today if we talk about, there is a major makeshift. I mean, so many IT companies have been the companies with highest possible market cap, some of them even reaching up to trillions of dollars. For example, the Amazons and the Googles and the Alphabets and all that. That was not the case in the past. For example, in the past, there were manufacturing companies or petroleum companies which were having a lion's share when it comes to market capitalization. Then changes also bring so many different opportunities. For example, work from home is something which is becoming very, very popular due to the pandemic era. And the valuations of companies like Zoom, they are increasing day by day. So that is something which was unforeseen, but such things even gives us the opportunity, or the businesses the opportunity to do better. But if they don't adapt to it on time, they'll have their own share of tough time as well. Then we are also seeing there is quite an increase or proliferation in online shopping, online banking as well, which was not the case in the yesteryears as well. And again, for example, very recently, not more than a week ago, there was a news that Deloitte is deciding to close down 4 of their offices and shifting the staff to work from home on a permanent basis. Closing down meaning the physical premises are closing down, but they are shifting around 500 of their staff to work from home on a permanent basis. Now, this is something which is again changing. So businesses may not have foreseen this, and so as the employees, but they have to be on their toes all the time to understand and work themselves and maneuver accordingly. So as we can see, the business environment represents all the external forces, factors, or conditions that exert some degree of impact on the business decisions, strategies, and actions taken by the firm, right? Businesses have to foresee, monitor, and adapt to the changes in its environment. And as we can see, COVID is a perfect example wherein so many things have happened which had never happened in the past. And there are so many things which we are doing. Even this class that we are having over Zoom is something which is part of a new normal. Otherwise, it should definitely have been into a proper facility where we would have been interacting personally or in a physical kind of an environment. But now we are doing it in a virtual environment. So that is the impact of changes in the businesses. Now, according to these two authors, the environment includes the factors outside the firm which can lead to opportunities for or threats to the firm. Although there are many factors, the most important of the factors are socio-economic, technological, suppliers, competitors, and the government. So as you can see in this image, the business firm is in the center and it has interaction and iterations with its suppliers, customers, competitors, creditors, governmental agencies, bankers, regulators, so on and so forth, right? So that is where it is very important that business is cutting across so many different entities and individuals as well. So why is business environment important? And as you have rightly highlighted, for example, it helps the organizations in determining the opportunities and threats. So it makes them ready for the changes which are coming, and it helps them strategize themselves and, position, align themselves as to how to deal with those changes. It gives a proper direction for growth, that where are they heading? How should they change themselves if the direction is not proper? How should they realign themselves in terms of their own strategy, look into the competitors and do things according to that. Then hello.
Hi, Sandeep ji.
Yeah, hello. Are you with me, or were we lost?
Nizam, Sarad?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Hello,
sir, we
Nizam,
can
can you
hear
hear
you.
me?
No, yes, sir, we can hear you.
So it was on, or there was any interruption in between, or it was all fine as well?
Now
Yeah,
I
it
don't know,
was fine,
something.
It's fine, right? Hello? It's okay?
Yeah, yes, sir. It's okay.
Fair enough. Okay, fair enough. So it also helps in meeting competition as well. Now, the characteristic of business environment is it is complex, definitely something which is not easily predictable. You have to be ready for any unpredictable event that might just come up. Anything which is unprecedented might come up, and we have to be flexible enough to respond to that according to the merits of the situation. Business environment is definitely dynamic. It is constantly changing, ever evolving, and it is multifaceted as well. And it has far-reaching impact as well. So the basic message is that one should be flexible to change. Otherwise, you will be thrown out of the market, right? They say you have to constantly plan. And if you fail to plan, you already planned your failure. So that's what businesses have to be careful about. Then comes the relationship between organizations and its business environment. So business environment does definitely interact, and it interacts in the way in which that, for example, there are exchanges of resources, there are exchanges of information, and there is influence and power of the business organization and of the environment on each others as well. So it remains to be seen who's able to exert what amount of influence and power on each others, right? So as we can see there, business environments also have, or the entities do have, exchange of information. So as we know, we are in an information era today. Information is a new weapon, so to say, if we can call about. So we have to gather meaningful information to be ahead of the race, to be ahead of the curve, to be ahead of our competitors as well. But at the same time, we have to make sure that we as an entity are able to protect the information that we have at our disposal about ourselves as well. Because as we are receiving information, we are at times even obliged to furnish certain information as well. And as we are trying to capitalize from the information that we get from our competitors, or, for example, peers, there would be competitors or peers who are willing to maximize on the information that we give out as well. Now, certain information can be disclosed voluntarily, whereas there are certain times whereas it is required mandatorily as well, and businesses have to do that. Now, one of the example of that is, for example, we've got an accounting standard about segmental reporting. Now, segment reporting tells organizations to give the details about their segments, which is operational segment, geographical segments, etc. So you invariably, even reluctantly end up giving information about your key customers. Or for example, there are certain regulations which want you to disclose your top 10 customers, top 10 suppliers, top 10 exposures that you have with the banks and the financial institutions. So if these informations go out, probably you may end up giving out your secretive and confidential data. So you just need to make sure that you need to protect your information as much as you can, of course, within the regulatory limits. And you need to obtain the information to make it meaningful and make sure that you are able to capitalize on that as well. Okay. Then the businesses also exchange the resources as well. So the key resources are classified by 5 M's, which is men, money, method, machine, and material. So the businesses can operate successfully by using these resources. And it is basically like an input, process, output kind of a concept. So for example, in order for us to produce our output, we've got to have some inputs which comes to us from the ecosystem in which we operate or the environment in which we operate, right? Now we process these inputs and we produce the output. Now our output would certainly become the input of certain other organization, and it's a vicious circle. It keeps on going on and on and on. So that is the meaning of exchange of resources. And when the businesses are operating, they have an obligation to fulfill the demands, right? From a stakeholder perspective as well. So for example, businesses don't operate on their own, as we said. There are so many stakeholders with the businesses. So for example, we've got customers, we've got suppliers, we've got bankers, regulators, right? Employees. So all these demands will also be fulfilled by the businesses as well. And then comes the exchange of influence and power. So as we know, if you think about an organization on its own standalone, will it be able to exert the influence and power over the environment in which it operates? Seldom not, because the businesses are not in so much of a bargaining power or in so much of negotiating muscle, I would say, that they can exert influence and power, unless you are somebody who is like a monopoly or you are sizable enough whereby you can dictate your own terms. Otherwise, the businesses are generally at the receiving end, and they have to adjust themselves in which that they will be able to adapt to the influence and power that the environment exerts over itself. Okay. All right. So are we doing fine, Nizam and Sarat? Is it okay, or?
Yeah, yes, sir. It's fine.
It's fine. Any doubts, any queries, or am I too fast, too slow, or anything to add here? Or it's going okay?
Yeah, going okay.
Fine, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so when it comes to the business environment, the organizations have to respond to the environment, right? Now, what kind of responses can be there from the organization really depends. So there can be certain administrative responses. So these are just changes that the organizations make administratively within its policies and procedures, or for example, ways of doing businesses, or for example, negotiating the trade terms, so on and so forth. So the organizational responses, if it is administrative, it can be proactive as well, whereby the organizations are forcing what could go wrong, and then they try to fix it even before it goes wrong. That is called as administrative response. I mean, proactive response to administrative part of it. It can even be reactive, that for example, you are put into a situation whereby you don't have any other option or a choice, but just adjust yourself accordingly. That is what is called the administrative response. Then there is something called as competitive response as well, whereby you are put into a situation like all your competitors as well. Now, how do you come out of that? By being a front runner, and you try to secure a competitive edge. And when you do that, that is what is called a competitive response to the change. And then there is something called as collective response. So for example, if the organization itself is not able to respond to the change that is happening around, it can even join hands. It can collaborate with like-minded organizations. For example, it can get into joint venture, it can get into partnerships, or for example, there is sometimes there's something called as collective bargaining as well. And then they try to respond. Now, for example, in the current times, if certain organizations, for example, pharmaceutical companies, they want to be ahead of the curve and do some research and development together to bring out the response to COVID, they might even think of doing that as well. So that could be an example of collective response to the environment as well, right? Now, we need to understand that why in the first place do we need to do the environmental analysis? Why is it that is so important, that there's so much of thrust, there is so much of time being spent in the companies, and even we are spending our time on a beautiful Friday morning, which could have been otherwise utilized for better things to do. So that is mainly to detect the early warning indicators. So for example, before anything could go wrong, if we are able to spot that, that will be something which will be brilliant. Then doing the environmental analysis also helps the company in decision making, and it helps them in strategic thinking through right information as well. And doing the environmental analysis also helps the company in challenging the current wisdom, or for example, what we call challenging the status quo. So businesses keep doing what they do as it is on an ongoing basis. Sorry. So they keep doing things on an ongoing basis without asking themselves, but sometimes pausing and asking yourself the questions and challenging the current wisdom could be very, very important as well. And as we know, the former CEO of GE General Electricals or Electronics, Jack Welch, used to always say that, for example, the conglomerates are there in so many different business segments. But according to his principle, he was saying that, for example, GE would not be into a business line if they cannot afford to be within top 3 or top 5 into that particular business model. So there's no point doing a business just because you are carrying it on for ages together, and because you are a massive conglomerate or a big business holding group, that you will continue to carry on the loss-making subsidiaries and all that as well. So when you do the environmental analysis, you might realize that, for example, some of the businesses that you are carrying on are not worth carrying on anymore, or those are not profitable ventures anymore. So those need to be hived off, spun off, kind of liquidated, dissolved, whatever. That is only possible when you keep analyzing your environment, right? Then they say that we need to do the environmental scanning as well on a timely basis. So businesses need to scan the environment. So as you rightly mentioned, for example, why is because that helps them in identifying the threats and opportunities and how to respond to those, right? So when it comes to scanning, they need to understand the events, the trends, the issues, and the expectations around it. Now, for example, to give you an example, if you are into a business and there are certain events that occur, which probably gives you some massive volatility or fluctuations in your operations. Now, to give you an example, for example, upcoming US elections, right? Now, that will have a pervasive effect. It will have global effect on the stock markets, on the way the businesses are conducted, the interest rates, and so on and so forth. So they say that somebody in US sneezes, people in the other part of the world, they catch cold, and it's very, very obvious. So the companies have to try to understand that, for example, if that is an event, what were the trends in the past, right? That, for example, whenever the election results came out, how did the markets respond? So, for example, if you think about certain traders, certain short-term investors, if they were to take certain positions just before the elections, they need to understand, they need to analyze the trends and see that how have such events affected in the past and what were the results and the outcomes of such events. So they need to position themselves accordingly. For example, if they're holding certain positions, if they don't want to carry it through the election period, they need to square them off, let the elections pass through, take fresh new positions, and then go on. Or if there are certain people who are speculative in nature, if they want to really venture out, they can always go back to such events and trends of the past. They can analyze the issues that happened last time, and then they can decide what could be the expectations, but not necessarily that they will always come true. But yes, they can risk it at their own peril, right? So that is what is the importance of environmental scanning as well. And then we come on to the components of business environment. So businesses have two environments have two major components. One is the internal environment. Second one is the external environment. So maybe we can have a look at the image here, probably image 2.10. So just I'll give you a minute's time probably to just go through that, and then we will discuss that in detail as well. And I hope I'm still audible, right? I'm sorry I keep repeating this, but I don't.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Fine, right? Okay. Yeah, so you can just have a look at this image about the business environment. Is it okay? Hello?
Sir, I can't see the screen.
You cannot see the screen?
No.
You cannot see the image, is it?
Yeah, image. That's what I was
Can
checking.
you see that now?
No.
Not, is
Sir, I
it?
can see your faces and all.
But not the image, right?
Yeah, not the image.
Okay, no problem. Let me just try to share another screen. That's the reason why I checked. And Nizam, can you see this now? Just a
No,
moment.
sir.
Just a second, please.
Yeah.
That's the reason I keep checking in between, because I am sometimes skeptical about this technology.
Yeah.
So can you see the PowerPoint at least?
No, sir.
You cannot see the PowerPoint as well?
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe is there
So-
anything wrong with me or?
So you can only see the screen, is it? Not,
Yeah. I can only see the screen.
meaning the video and not the
Yeah.
slide.
Video, not the slide.
Just a second. How about it now?
Yeah. Now it's like, now I can see it.
You can see that, right? Okay, so if you don't see it, please let me know beforehand, huh? Don't worry.
Yeah.
You can just put it up, because I don't want to carry on unless we are both on the same page.
Yes, sir.
And Sarath is also there, right?
Yeah.
Sarath, how are you doing? You are fine?
Yes, sir. I'm fine.
All right. So you're able to see the screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir.
Yes, please.
Yeah, sir. In business environment, there will be some unexpected changes, which the organization may fail to they were fail to identify, right, or predict. We say.
True. Yes.
So yeah. So in that case, how do the business respond to that?
Yes. Okay, that's a good question. Okay, so how do the businesses respond to that? Now, see, for example, the businesses generally will have different departments, so for example, they'll have strategic department, they'll have risk management department, they'll have a business continuity department, they may have even like disaster recovery department as well. So now, for example, when the COVID came in, right, and when it was not possible for the people to come to the offices, now that was something that was unprecedented, right? People never thought that people would not be allowed to come to the offices, there'll be lockdowns, etc. Correct?
Yes.
So now such situation gave rise to virtual offices. That means companies, like for example, there were certain multinational companies, they already had work from home policy, partially. Or for example, yeah, when you go to the Western part of the world, it is very, very obvious that they allow employees to work from home, or they do facilitate remote working, etc. So for them, it was okay and fine. But even then, they had never kind of explored that at a full level, right? I mean, some of the employees were allowed to work from home on an exceptional basis, or for example, some batches were working from home. But then when this became a new normal, then companies had to kind of fall in place. They had to appoint IT companies, or for example, they had to subscribe to these subscriptions like Zoom and so on and so forth, and make sure that the staffs are allowed to work from home. Staffs were required to be trained. So for example, initially they were called into the offices in batches, or they did remote training, right? So this is how they respond, because certain changes are such that you can, I mean, whatever be your readiness or preparedness, you are not able to foresee them at all. Now, something like this, nobody had ever predicted that the businesses will go off. I mean, who had ever thought that the airlines will come at a complete halt? And for example, if you go to a city like Mumbai in India, the local trains are not working, which is considered like a lifeline. Like earlier, even a day when the local trains were not working, people were, lost. The things were not happening properly. Things were helter-skelter. But now if you see, people are getting used to it. And this is the essence. See, for example, Jack Welch, again, I'm quoting him. He said that change before you have to. See, there'll come times in businesses where you will be forced to change, right? You will be forced to think that you will have to change. So don't wait for that day to come. Don't wait for that rainy day to come. Prepare yourselves. Now, for example, we all are aware about this company called Infosys, right? So the founder of Infosys, Mr. Narayan Murthy, for example, long ago, he said that my company must have certain amount of minimum cash balance available at all times, come what may. Now, when you look into the balance sheet of a company, for example, if it's a liquid cash, idle cash, people might think this is a waste of money. There is an opportunity cost of money. This money could have been parked elsewhere. There would have been an interest earned on that. They could have been invested for a long term, and they would have earned interest out of it. But maybe he had that vision, that foresight long ago, that I must have certain liquid balance in my company. Now, if you think about that philosophy, that is coming very helpful and handy in today's time. Now, so many businesses we hear, just because there is a lockdown, they are not able to conduct their operations for last 6 to 7 months. And because they were not having enough liquidity, they have started kind of, downsizing their staff. They fired so many people. They froze the salaries. They reduced the salaries. They stopped the appraisals. They stopped the increments. They stopped the promotions. Now, what is that? Now, that is because they were not ready, and they were never thinking that something of this scale can happen, right? And we've seen that the biggest of the big have failed in this pandemic. So please understand that nobody is too big to fail. So they have to be prepared. And that's why I said that if businesses fail to plan, they have already planned their failure. So that's the essence of what I'm trying to address. I hope I addressed your query properly.
Yes. Sir, one more thing. Sir, how does the businesses effectively identify these threats?
Sorry?
How does this business effectively identify this threat? There is some difficulties, all those things, threats and all those things. How does they effectively identify these threats?
Okay, that's again a very good question. Okay, so what happens, for example, to give you a very practical life-oriented example, there is a thing called ERM, if you heard about it. ERM, have you heard about it?
No, sir.
Okay, so it is called Enterprise Risk Management. Okay, so what happens, of course, this is more applicable to the organizations which are very, very structured, like sophisticatedly run organizations, or the multinational, or even some big local companies as well. But I mean, it may not be something which very common with, let's say, small and medium enterprises. But yeah, the sizable organizations, they have something called as ERM, which is Enterprise Risk Management. So as a part of this exercise, what they try and do is that they try to identify their top risks. Because see, businesses will have so many risks, but not all the risks are equally important to the management, right? Again, when you talk about risk, there is something called as impact and a likelihood. So what is the likelihood of a risk materializing? And if the risk materializes, what would be the impact? Now, for example, if you talk about Bahrain and Japan, let's say we talk about two different countries. if you talk about an earthquake happening in Bahrain, if you talk about the likelihood is very, very minimal. By the
Yeah.
grace of God, we haven't experienced so many earthquakes in the past, and we pray to God we don't in the future as well. Right?
Sandeepji,
Yes.
Vivek this side.
Yes, Vivek.
There is actually a small development. We have a meeting. If you remember, we have a meeting at 10.
Yeah, I
So
remember.
it's going to be through this Zoom only. So we have to go to another platform for this class. Is it okay
Okay.
with you?
Yeah,
So
fine.
yeah. So due to time limitation, I'm going to send you Zoom Teams meeting invite. So can you share
Okay.
your Gmail ID with me?
Okay, I'll send you over a WhatsApp. Is it okay?
Yes. Yes, that's
Okay.
fine. And Nizam, Sarat,
Yes.
can you send me
Yeah.
your Gmail IDs quickly?
It.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. We will continue with this, Nizam, no problem. I'll answer you
Oh,
this.
okay, sir.
Yep.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, and sorry for the inconvenience.
No problem.
No problem.
Okay. I'll send you the email address. I will
Okay, sure.
send it. Okay. So I'll leave the meeting, right?
Okay, yes.
Okay. No